Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica Podcast, episode number 152.
You sure?
We're getting up there, 152. With me tonight, Mr. Steve Santos. What's going on, Steve
everybody?
Santos?
You know, another night, another more technical difficulties, but we'll survive.
I don't know how we've made it this far to episode 152 with this many technical difficulties. That just shows you the resilience and the Benfiquista espírito that everybody has. Also, right next to me, Mr. Cristiano dos Santos Oliveira Carvalho.
That's not my name. What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Hoping you guys enjoyed tonight's podcast, because we sure as hell did not enjoy this weekend.
Chega mais pra aqui, pá.
That's what they say, but usually it's the women. Hope you enjoy tonight's podcast. Once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I know I didn't enjoy this weekend's performance by our great Glorioso, and hopefully we'll be able to entertain you guys a little bit more than what they did over the weekend.
We'll get into that shortly, but let me tell you what's on tap for tonight. We will obviously recap the Rio Ave game. We'll also look ahead to what's next for Benfica, for both Benfica and Porto. We'll run down each week what each team has to do each week, who they have to play each week, and we'll wrap it up by looking at the Nacional. I know the Nacional comes up in 2 weeks, but we're actually thinking perhaps taking a week off next week. We'll see. We haven't decided yet.
I ain't taking off the weekend. Come on, stop with that. Everybody wants to know what the hell we have to say regarding our one and only popsicle on the Benfica on the Portuguese national team. We got to represent.
I'm not going to be talking about the national team, man.
Well, listen, guys.
I'm not going to be talking. I want to tell you why I'm not going to be talking about the national team, because as long as Fernando Santos is suspended, I'm not talking about the national team. Wow, I can't believe I just came up with that reason.
Regardless of whether the guy suspended or not, Cristiano Ronaldo runs things, so it's irrelevant. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, all you beautiful Benfiquistas, you goddamn beautiful, guys and gals that listen to us on the Benfica Podcast here on a weekly basis. If you are interested in hearing our thoughts, I should say, regarding Portugal, the Tugas national team, please hit us up, and I'm pretty sure we'll comply and try to make you guys happy.
No, you know what I was thinking about doing next week? Maybe we could have like a bunch of people, like a good 5-6 people.
That's it?
Yeah, or as many as we could fit, like 10 people.
The way I look at it is, regardless what the amount of people is present, I don't let nobody talk anyway. I'm gonna do all the talking. So,
but that's all right.
We saw that the truth.
We saw that in Portugal with Tom Kunder and Planeta Benfica and Laura and you and whoever the hell else was present. I didn't let anybody talk.
I'm thinking that we'll just have a bunch of people. We'll just hang out. People will watch us do this, hang out, be part of it, and it'll be fun.
Brilliant idea.
I think it'll be fun. If only we could get Meg, Lovers Out of Time, and Amina, and
Lovers Out of Time.
Maybe we could get Laura, and we could get Kevin. We could get Timo. I'd love to have Timo on.
Timo's a clown. He wears socks like I do, and he gets upset every time I mention him. But you know what? I feel the affection due to the fact that we wear similar socks. There's a connection there, and Timo's a little upset because I mentioned him. So right now, I feel I mentioned him more than I anticipated I would already. So, Timo, if you want to share socks, bro, I'll give you my email address, and we could maybe exchange addresses.
Hey, Pedji, maybe you could start working on that Ebola virus for your job, so you could have next Tuesday off.
Did you know how Ebola started?
No.
I posted on Twitter. I don't want to say here, but it started by someone on their knees and someone bending over. It's just a crazy ass idea.
All right. I'm glad that Cynthia put Rui to bed, because this is obviously going to be an R-rated conversation.
As long as Rui's Benfiquista, we're good.
Oh, he is. Trust me, he is a big Benfiquista.
That's what's up. Mario
has trained them well. Everybody, we're shouting out everybody today. Appreciate all the support that you guys give us week in, week out. But let's get right into this Rio Ave game. Benfica traveled up north to play Rio Ave. I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Maxi, Luizão, Jardel, and Eliseu across the back. Samaris and Pizzi were in the middle. Salvio and Talisca were on the wings. Jonas and Lima. Steve, looking at this lineup real quick. Talisca instead of Olajan. What's the whole thought process? Is it really to keep Talisca confident, perhaps?
I'm guessing that's one of the things. That's probably the only thing that makes any sense to me. Because if you look at it, Talisca seems lost enough when you play him in a position that he should be more comfortable in. When you put him out on the wing, it seemed like he was lost. He was never offering the right passing lane. He didn't offer any width down the left, which maybe he was told not to do, and that was part of Eliseu's job, who obviously did not read the memo and didn't do that either. But for me, Talisca on the left side of midfield just was the wrong way to go. I know it's easy to say this in hindsight, but I'm pretty sure I called it in the last podcast that I would have preferred to have seen Ola John. And the moment Ola John came in the 74th or 75th minute, he automatically started creating chances that Talisca was not creating. Talisca was, for the most part of the match, a passenger in the game. I know I'm known to criticize the guy a lot, but the only time that he really showed something was that one play where he had a little bit of space and he was able to carry the ball and run at people. Aside from that, I mean, he was just basically invisible for the whole match.
Steve, you bring up great points regarding Gaetan and regarding, Talisca and regarding Olajan, but I think, you know what? Jorge Jesus has finally hit it right on the head, and I think he agrees with what I've said in previous podcasts, which is Olajan's a better player coming off the bench. And right now, we kind of, Alfredo and I kind of agreed on this at the beginning of the season when you were a huge critic of Talisca's play. They even made a song for this guy. Deixa Talisca jogar. Deixa Talisca jogar. But, I think right now we see what Alfredo and I saw at the beginning of the year, that Benfica is going to force feed this guy. And anytime there's an opportunity to put this guy into the lineup, they did exactly that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Olajan isn't the player we all anticipated he'd be when he's a starter. He seems to come into the game and understand the game a lot more coming off the bench. And I think that's exactly what Jorge Jesus sees here. I think he sees the same exact thing I've done. I know I use it on previous experiences with myself. When I came off the bench, it seemed like the game was a little bit slower than it was when I was a starter. You see the game. You see what your opposition is doing. You have an opportunity to see exactly what their tactics are. And I think Olajan is a great example of that. The guy is a totally different player when he comes off the bench.
I think there's a multitude of factors. I think that, first of all, the guy comes to Benfica. He comes to Benfica preseason with already half the season in Brazil going on. So he's a guy that doesn't really have to go through that physical period that the whole team went through. He was already in game shape. So then, obviously he stands out in the preseason, stands out in the beginning of the season. But then, as the season progresses and these guys catch up to him physically, then you got another factor. You got a factor that the guy has been playing, I don't know how many months straight without a rest. So that's kind of wearing him down. So the fact that he lost also his position to Jonas on this team also could have, he could have played a little bit mentally with the guy. The guy's young, might not be able to handle the fact that he got benched after such an explosive start. And maybe JJ is just trying to string him along, make sure that he doesn't put him together. So maybe that's has a little bit of mental edge to it.
I just think it has to do with the fact that the Brazilian style of play is totally different from what you expect in Europe. I mean, you've seen it from the rivals. Even Ronaldinho, when he got to Paris Saint-Germain's first year, it took a while to adapt to the European style of play. The European style of play is a lot quicker than what it is in Brazil. I mean, we've seen plenty of games. In the what's it called, Steve? What's the exact word here?
Brasileirão,
garoto. Você sabe no Brasil, nunca já futebol sapato. Mas sabe aqui nos Estados Unidos. No, but the Brasileirão is a lot slower than what it is here, in Europe.
Without a doubt.
And so I think regardless whether you're an excellent player or just an above average player, it's going to take you a minute to adapt to style of play. And I think that's what's happened with Talisca here at Benfica. And when we combine the fact that Jonas was brought into this squad and they kind of intertwine with one another and they kind of like to occupy the same spaces.
Yeah.
You're going to take Jonas all day over Talisca because you know what? Jonas has been able to put the ball in the back of the net on a more consistent basis. So I don't think it's necessarily a knock on Talisca just yet. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, this guy's a 20-year-old kid who is making his debut in European soccer. Yeah. And if you understand anything about soccer, compared to Brazilian soccer or anything to do with South American soccer, it's night and day.
I think they call it futebol.
Futebol, garoto. It's totally different. And so, I think if he is to stay at Benfica next year, I anticipate that he will make that next jump. But right now, due to the fact that this guy came out and scored all these goals and, looked like the dude was going to, set the world on fire, I think our anticipation of Talisca went through the roof. And Steve, to his credit, Steve kind of stayed low ground. He was able to see through, through the goals and try to criticize the guy. He did. Steve and I go back and forth on Jonas and a couple other players, all the time. But, when Steve gets it right, man, I tip my cap to the gentleman. Yeah. He's a fantastic. You guys think you olho, man. You guys just chalkboard Steve for a reason.
It's a good thing you mentioned Jonas. To me, I think we had a lot of trouble playing football or penetrating Rio Ave because Jonas was kind of blocked up. Rio Ave played with a defensive midfield three. It was three guys that are known to be more defensively sound than they are offensively sound. They had Tarantini, Wakaso, and that Moreira, I can't remember his last name now. When those three guys were playing basically as a screen in front of the back four, even though we scored that early goal, we were never able really to find Jonas in the pockets of space in between lines that he likes to get the ball. And I think that really it made it extremely difficult for us to play that football that we're starting to play this year. We're not playing the same explosive 1v1 football where you have a guy like Rodrigo who's very quick with the ball and he runs at you and he might play a quick 1-2, but more often than not he's going to try to force you into tackling him or whatnot. Now instead of Rodrigo and Enzo, guys who are more players of in Portuguese, the word's condução. It's a guy who likes to carry the ball, likes to run with the ball. Now we have more pass and move type players. And when they closed up the passing lanes, it made it really difficult for us to create chances. I mean, we scored that really early goal and then...
Yeah, but Steve, okay, that's all fine and good. They're playing defensive. They're closing things up. We're up 1-0. I mean, at this point, we got the game under control. We're really winning 1-0. They're playing defensively. We have to adopt the right tactical mindset to put this game on ice.
You know what Benfica and I had in common this Saturday? After the first goal, we both went to sleep.
And that's exactly it.
I'm not gonna lie. Chris. I woke up with the noise of the penalty. I'm like, what a penalty? I'm like, what? I start looking around like penalty. Guys, like, what the hell? Yeah, I think we both went to sleep. I think we both napped off, and you could tell the intensity wasn't there. Benfica seemed to be content with the early lead at times. And, Steve, let me know if you disagree with this. At times, it's seen so far this season that when Benfica have had the opportunity to get an early lead, it seems like they've kind of laxed. And to me, this weekend, that's exactly what it seemed like.
Yeah, it's not the first time that we've seen.
You're not Steve. I'm asking Steve.
Yeah. No, you're right. Complacency definitely set in today. Not today, on Saturday. You had an early goal, which was, let's give credit where it's due. That pass from PT is out of this world. Gorgeous pass. But after that, there's instances in this game where Alfredo's right. We had to kill this game off. The attitude was just lacking. The complacency settled in. We instead of really pushing forward and finding a way to attack them, we kind of just rested on our laurels and let them absorb the pressure instead of really going after them. There's an instance in, I think it's the early part of the second half, that we recuperate the ball just inside our own half. Talisca has the ball. There's acres and acres of space on the left-hand side. And Talisca's actually doing something right to it. He's kind of holding onto the ball, waiting for Eliseu to push on and offer a passing option to the guy. But Eliseu instead just sits back in line with his two center backs and says, no, calma. But you're only winning 1-0.
Got a yelling for that.
you're have a history of losing games up north, and you don't go for the throw. Eliseu, I'm sorry, was 100% in the wrong at that point, but it wasn't just him. This was something that was transmitted throughout the whole team. There was just a lack of attitude, a lack of intensity that was very, very worrisome.
I think Popsicle might have been saving himself for the national team, maybe resting up an extra week.
I don't know. Popsicle was.
No, but I remember that vividly, and he got a stern yelling from JJ for telling Talisca to slow up. Slow up for what? Let's kill this freaking game. And
maybe Popsicle was seeing something we didn't. I try to defend the guy week in, week out, but you know what? I mean, what else can I say? We call him Popsicle for a reason, guys. You know what I mean? And it's a perfect example, Steve. Great eye this weekend. He had an opportunity to jump into the play, and it just seemed like there's something there that was missing. And we don't know if it's due to the fact that he's overweight, he's out of shape. I mean, I like to think, maybe he doesn't have that hunger, because we're talking about what, 6-7 months into the season, and if you're not in shape at this point of the season, I mean, realistically, do we ever expect you to be in shape, Steve?
Yeah. I think that Peter 1678 brings up a great point. The early goal, and then the two forced injuries to Rio Ave still in the first half. Perhaps it was something that we thought, okay, we got this in the bag. They got two forced injuries. It could have been something that played mental.
Two very important players. Your best center back and your most dangerous attacker. And instead of Benfica seeing this and going for the throw, they put their foot on the ball and just kind of relaxed. It's not a good omen. It's not at all. I mean,
Steve, I think it had more to do. I think it had more to do with the fact that Benfica got the early lead. You know what I mean? If you recall, go back to last week's podcast, and you and Laura, you guys are both, pretty cautious, talking about it's going to be a tight game. And I was like, Benfica's going to go out there and beat them 3-0. And I think the Benfiquistas, due to the fact they scored a goal early, 5 minutes in. Now, they got an early lead in that no one anticipated. All of a sudden, two of their very most important players go down. It's kind of like, all right, we got this.
Yeah.
And I think that actually hurt them. That absolutely hurt them.
I think that the 1-0, and as everyone knows that watches football week in, week out, 1-0 is perhaps the most dangerous result that you could have. And I don't understand how JJ didn't get these guys fired up to kill the game. Really, up north, kill the game.
JJ's like one of these
dudes. Go to
dudes,
sleep early.
JJ's like Samson in Delilah. Seems like he's cut his hair and all of a sudden he's lost his strength. You know what I mean? He lost that feistiness that we're accustomed to seeing this guy on the sideline chewing a piece of gum off the side of his mouth and getting his team to go forward. It wasn't that this weekend. I mean, I don't know if it had to do with confidence. I don't know if it had to do with the opponent. I don't exactly know how to pinpoint it.
Yeah.
It's just disappointing. I've constantly complained about the fact that Benfica seems to go out on the road and they don't seem to put the foot to the metal. Okay, and it happened again this week.
Yeah, Kevin says sometimes the team needs these type of losses to build from it.
Kevin
build character. Drunk. Can't expect to win 10 games in a row. Come on, Kevin, dude.
Kevin, bottom
this building character, winning 10 games, 11 games in a row. That builds character.
I gotta say this about building character. I was about 18 years old, and this hot chick. It's the honest truth. It was this hot chick. I don't know if you recall Gaivota, and then it became, I forgot what it was.
Then it became Passarinho.
I became a new club in Newark, New Jersey, and I was in love with this one chick, and I wanted to kick it to her, and I said, "Damn, that chick is hot." And my boy's like, "But you got to lose. Go kick it to her." I said, "You crazy?" And he goes, "My man. Rejection builds character." I looked at him like, you gonna get rejected, bro. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the same thing with Benfica. How in the hell is Benfica losing this game gonna build any type of character? I mean, as a Benfica, the only thing we had to hold out for was the fact that, Porto had a very tough match in playing us now, and we're very lucky that Porto was able to go out there and get a draw. And that's the one thing that I take from this weekend, because, I mean, guys, Steve, do you disagree? Our tune will be absolutely different right now if Porto had won rather than get a draw on us,
Yeah, well, if is a very big word. If Lima scores that goal, then this podcast has a completely different outlook.
Well, and the dude at Nacional, I think it was harder to miss the net than it was to put it on net, and he was able to shoot it over, if you recall.
the only good thing about Porto drop, well, obviously it's many good things that Porto drop points, but it shows that they have a slight deficiency when it comes into the mental aspect of the game. They could have got within 1 point of us as well, but they choked.
Okay.
And you know what? At least they're on the same page as we are at this point.
Yeah, I think they were feeling that same pressure that we felt against Paço Ferreira, where we could have gone ahead and increased our lead in points, and we didn't, knowing what they had done. And I think that that Porto too, man. That I mean, when you look at the team and you look at the way they've done all season, obviously mentally they're not there yet. So. But, I mean, that you're looking at that Lima goal, that could have changed everything, a lot of things. Kevin is also saying that he thinks Eliseu picked up an earlier knock and was asking for JJ to take him out.
It seemed like it.
I mean,
it seemed like it at a point.
I don't know, but Almeida's on the bench. He could have put him. I don't know, man.
I think at that point, Benfica needed a goal, and I think he tried to keep his defenders in place rather than.
That was at 1-1 already.
Yeah, exactly, Steve.
Yeah. And Neil, the girls in Jersey are not called Gaivota. That was the name of a bar, Gaivota.
There you go.
Neil, but you're prima. We can call it whatever you want, buddy.
Anyway, a game that Benfica should have won for sure. Another lapse, and who knows, if we had won, maybe Porto wins too. So we don't really know in hindsight looking at it. But look, these are games that we go up north. We play against these teams that closed off in a narrow field with players that don't really give us the width that we're accustomed with, especially in a narrow field where you want to use all of the field, and some lack of motivation, perhaps. I don't know if you want to call that or something else. And very passive, the team. I thought the team was very passive, and I think that, look, you gotta dig down. You got the game against Porto coming up soon, and you gotta keep winning these games until you get there. Now, there's only 3 points, Steve.
It's only 3 points, but if you want to win, it's still in our hands. And if you want to win the Campeonato, you have to beat Porto at home. Whether it's a 3 point, it's almost like a prerequisite. You got to show force at home, and for me, a champion's got to beat your rival at home, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I mean, if I don't have to count on that game coming into Porto, I'd rather not. I mean, let's just be realistic. I could care less about the champion must be a champion. Listen, bro, things will get easy for my club. I mean, the easier to get, the better there is for me.
Yes. State Toasty.
Oh, State. Make it back.
Underscore. One advantage that we have over FCP is experience in late season run to the title. I mean, yes. And we also have the fans behind it, and there's something that JJ is counting on.
Really?
But I don't know, man. We've also gone down late in the season and died on the beach, as they say.
92nd minute, bro. I mean, do I have to go over that? I mean,
JJ is also a much more experienced coach than Lopetegui, which
absolutely,
which will hopefully help us in the end, because Lopetegui's got a few difficult games with the Champions League, and he's gonna have to manage his squad, and he'll hopefully choke at this point.
Steve, that being said, great points. Once again, fantastic job by Chalkboard Steve. But you know what, Steve? We all very well know that it'll all matter, on the first result of the match against Bayern Munich. If they go blown out 4-0 in the first match, I mean, what does he really care about saving players? And you know what? He'll go full throttle in the game against Benfica. Now, if it's going to be a close result, Porto has a chance to get out of the draw here, to get out of the tie here, I should say, in advance. Yeah, I think then it will it'll be very, very beneficial to Benfica. So I think a lot of it has to do with the score against Bayern Munich.
All right, here's one last question.
One last.
You
guys are slacking. We need a lot more questions
about the game, and the outpouring on Twitter is great. Oh, we love it. And Meg is asking, at Lovers Out of Time is asking, should have JJ have taken out Samaris instead of Talisca? Steve, I'll let you answer that.
I don't think so. I think JJ made the right move by bringing on Olajan for Talisca, just because the area where Talisca likes to operate was already very crowded. You didn't need to push through the middle at that point. You needed width down the left. Eliseu, for one reason or the other, did not either want to or was not able to offer you that. So he went for somebody who was going to give him that width down the left. And that was Ola John. I don't think playing Pizzi as a defensive midfielder, especially with that kid Diego Lopes that came in who really changed the game for Rio Ave, I don't think that would have been a good idea. So no, for me, Samaris was right to say on the pitch whether or not he conceded the penalty. I know I always pick on Talisca, but I think that was the right move.
Yeah, shout over to SLB Carlitos.
Carlitos para aqui. Carlitos para ali.
I've been following Carlitos for quite some time. Carlitos, abraço, obrigado por estares a sintonizar-nos. And his question is, if you want Benfica to play with nota artística in all its games, they should always begin with an early goal against. I kind of agree with that, but there's something, also an early goal could also lead to, complacency. And that's the one thing that we want to guard against. And I think the team has to be very well prepared mentally to guard against complacency.
It's a fair point. I mean, we saw Benfica go out on the roll the last couple of weeks and be down 1-0. All of a sudden, the team seemed like a spark went off, and they definitely picked things up, and they were able to score a couple of goals. It's a great point, but as a Benfica, I don't want to see that. I mean, I'll try to suffer the least possible.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve.
We got to put this game away, period.
We had the opportunity after the 5th minute, to kind of step on their throats, and Benfica seemed to have fallen asleep at the wheel. It was not the same Benfica. I can't even say it was the same Benfica. When we saw 5 minutes of Benfica, all of a sudden, we don't know what the game plan was. I just think that once Benfica scored that early goal, right, the game plan went out the window. It's kind of like, okay, we got an early goal, and let's just try to defend. Benfica did not try to go forward and create any type of play. It seemed like everyone wasn't in sync. And it was a very disappointing performance for myself.
Yeah, I thought it was very disappointing too. And these are actually the games that will win you championships. And the next thing that I wanted to get into is all the games that we have, both Porto and us, for the rest of the championship. And I agree with Kevin saying that we fans and team got to take one game at a time, not think about the Porto game. I understand that, but you got to start. It's great that you focus on one game at a time, but you can't think one game. Obviously,
I agree with you. We're not in the EPL.
It makes sense.
We're not in the EPL. We're not in La Liga. I mean, this is Portugal, guys. As much as we love the Portuguese league, we need to understand it's not the strongest league in the world. Yeah. And if Benfica can't get through the opposition, the weaker opposition, and get to this Porto game with the 4-point lead, which obviously we're not going to do now, or at least with a 3-point lead in a couple of weeks. I mean, come on, guys. Let's be fair. I mean, it's not exactly the toughest league in the world.
I agree. But you look at these games and they're absolutely crucial. I understand when you're saying that you got to take each game at a time, but everybody's pinpointing that one game against Porto and the point advantage that we take into that game as being the pivotal game. Logically, I'd like to go into Estádio da Luz and play Porto without having to win, so we could be more relaxed, so we could play with less pressure. Obviously, I think the pressure is going to be on Porto's side. But nevertheless, we've had opportunities to have that cushion. Paços Ferreira, now Rio Ave, and we've kind of been losing that cushion little by little, which is not in our best interest.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But to agree with Kevin to an extent, the games are you're only in the Portuguese league. Every game is like a final. You have to look ahead at this Porto game as like the most important game, but you can't lose games like we just lost on the weekend. I think it was versus Paços a while back where JJ said we may not be able to win the game, but we definitely can't lose it. And I think this Rio Ave game had to have the same label on it, and we let this one slip through. I mean, it was just a game where there was nothing but mental lapses. The goal that they get is a Maxi throw-in where he basically coughs up the ball, and in the 90 whatever odd minute it is.
What was that, Steve?
Exactly my point. You can't.
I mean, it's that lax in concentration.
That's what it was. And the whole match, they weren't mentally sharp. And whether you want to look at the whole squad, whether you want to look at JJ, if you look at JJ, he was blasting Elizeu for not offering that passing line with Talishka. So he obviously knew what was going on. So sometimes it just doesn't work, and sometimes you want to push yourself that extra bit, and you can't find it for whatever reason. You were put to sleep by the early goal. Things looked like they were going to get easy because of the two injuries, and they couldn't find that extra gear, that extra bit of motivation. Regardless of the fact, that's a little bit of where you find champions. A guy who sees this and says, you know what, forget this, man. We got to push through this even if it looks easy. And aside from Luizão, we might be lacking a little bit of that character.
Yeah. I don't know, man. The other thing too that I didn't like was JJ's presser after the game.
Awful.
I thought he was just too passive. He took the high route. He decided to blame the referees. Come on, dude. You gotta step out. I think
that was smart, man.
No, you gotta step out and admit that your team.
See, we don't know what went on in the locker room. I think that was smart. If he comes out and he critiques the club, hold on. If he comes out and he critiques the club and he absolutely, kills them in a press conference, I think all you're gonna do is add pressure to this club going forward. I think if he came out and in public say, you know what. We played our game. We did what we have to, which we heard of. And I thought he was absolutely wrong. I mean, I'm not going to agree with what he was saying. I thought he was 100% wrong in saying that Luizão shouldn't have gotten a red card because Pop Sick was right there. Pop Sick was 30 feet to his left. There's no way. I mean, regardless whether the dude got through or not, Pop Sick was never going to get to him. So I thought it was just red card. That being said, we don't know what it was, what message it was that he sent to his team in the locker room. I think it was smart of him not to come out. Could you imagine he comes out in a press conference and he absolutely kills this team? The pressure that team's going to have, the newspaper article. I mean, it's just the pressure on Benfica is totally different from any club in Portugal. Combine, Sporting and Futebol Clube Corrupto. Combine those two together. There's nowhere near the pressure that Benfica is going to get, the attention that this team was going to get. And if Jorge Jesus was to come out and criticize him, I mean, things would get multiplied by 10. I don't have a problem with what he said, with the understanding that he did give the business to his team in the locker room.
I don't know, man. I think that you got to spur the team, especially going down the stretch. You got to keep the team in check. You got to keep them focused.
This is a team that you, myself, Steve, and a lot of the guys that were absolutely ecstatic about the fact that they contribute here to Benfica Podcast. I think every single one of us has agreed on this, which is Benfica is not the same club that they were last year. We don't have the depth that we had last year. I think it's wise of Jorge Jesus not to come out and kill this team because I think he knows the limitations that this club has at the moment.
Steve, what do you think, bro?
I think JJ's been pushing a lot about the Onda Vermelha lately, and the fans and whatnot. And I think to be truthful to the fans, he had to put it out there and say that the team was not at the level that they should be, given what the fans have been giving them over the past few months. I think that he needs to make that known to the team itself, that this performance wasn't up to scratch. It does not meet the fans' not only expectations, but what they have brought to you as the club. Whether he did that behind closed doors, like Chris says, or whether he did it in the presser, the problem with it is behind closed doors, you do not communicate with the fans. And I think he should have, at least for me, he should have tried to bridge that gap a little bit and make sure that he knows, or that he makes us aware that he's aware that was not a good performance.
But Steve, is his job
instead of going after instances in the match where they were?
I don't know, man.
Steve, is his job to appease the fans or to have his team under control?
Look, you've been calling out the fans. As a fan, I am freaking pissed as hell.
See?
I go to the Braga game. I put myself out there. I go to the Rio Ave game. I put myself out there. And look, I expect a little bit more effort and less complacency from the team in this Rio Ave game.
As a fan, you should expect that. But I think as a club, and I think he knows this club better than what we do, okay, and he understands the limitations that this club has, and in particular without a Gaetan in the lineup, and now with a Luizon going forward, I think he understands that, and I think for him to come out and put more added pressure on this ball club going forward without the likes of its captain and Luizon, I think those are calculated steps that the guy took, and I think, again, I'm not in the locker room. Neither one of us is in the locker room. I wish we were there. Again, if he went into the locker room and he absolutely lambasted his team, I'm 100% okay with that, and gave us a totally because I think his job as the manager is not to appease the fans. His job as a manager is to manage. That's exactly why he's a coach and he's a man. It's to manage the personalities, to manage the mentality of every single one of his players on this ball club, and his job is to keep everyone's confidence up. If he's going to go there and absolutely kill his team and question his team's will in the press. Now, a lot of those guys that obviously after a devastating loss at Rio Ave, he didn't exactly lose to Sporting in Porto here. This is a loss at Rio Ave, which probably shook a lot of his players' confidence. I think it was smart of him not to go there because he understands that he doesn't have the options that he had last year, that he could just turn to his bench and, you know what? This guy, you're not performing to the expectations. We'll just bring another guy off the bench to do so. This year, he doesn't have that. Yeah. This year, he's got to select 12 or 13 players that he could count on, and I don't think you wanted to absolutely kill, their confidence.
I understand that we don't know what was said in the locker room and whether he killed them or not, but I think with the fact that he's been asking and praising the outpour by the fans, I think he owed it to the fans to leave a little message to the fans. We're still focused. We're gonna do this. We're gonna sprint to the finish, and so on and so forth. I just thought he was too passive in his presser.
Yeah, I'm not asking him. I'm seeing some comments on Twitter. I'm not asking him to lambaste his players in public.
Neither am I.
I'm not asking for a Mourinho-like press conference where he has that every once in a while, which is very rare. I'm just to acknowledge that it was a below-par performance instead of going after instances with the ref or whatnot. That's all that I was asking for. And, Chris, you have that 100% right. This is a team that it's being managed by its limitations. And JJ has done the best coaching he's done since the day he first arrived at the club because he has a limited amount of resources to work with. So I understand that. It's just as a fan and the way he's been calling out to the fans as the 12th man, as the Onda Vermelha and everything else he's been saying, I think he needed to address that situation where it was a fantastic showing up in Vila do Conde by Benfiquistas that yet again it looked like a mini Estádio da Luz, and the team has slightly let him down. And I think if you put that little bit of responsibility, especially after a performance where if you look at it, you are the better side. The only thing that was really missing should have been the mental aspect, not the technical aspect, because technically Benfica will never be inferior to Rio Ave. So it was the mental aspect that was missing. I don't think it would have hurt them to give them a little bit of tough love, let's say.
Steve, not disagreeing with you 100%, but I think this is a club that has enough pressure on its shoulders as is, and I think he understands his players better than any one of us does, and I think he knows what he's doing. I think, again, I'm going to emphasize the fact that if he gave it to these guys in the locker room, you know what? We don't know if he did so or not. But I expect, I would like to think that he would have gone into the locker room and kind of given his players the business, because this is a team that is, again, not as deep as it was. And what does he gain by criticizing his players in public? All it's going to do is raise the pressure on his players to perform at a better level, a higher level next game, coming up in a couple of weeks after the international break. And I don't think this team needs any added pressure. And so, again, I agree with everything you're saying. You know what I'm saying, Steve? I'm not totally discarding what you're saying. But I think Jorge Jesus is a little bit smarter than that. And I don't think, I think he was calculated. I think he went out there, and I think he said, you know what, there's no reason for me to put any more added pressure on this club than what it's had. Let's hope Porto drops some points. At the end of the day, even if Porto was to win the game over the weekend, Benfica's going to walk away with a 1-point lead, and Benfica's still going to be in first place, and they're still going to have control of their own destiny here in the Campeonato Português for the Bicampeonato.
I'm not a fan either, and Mr. Duck Step 2 says it's never the right choice to bash your own players in public, even if performance is an acceptable standard. I agree with that, but I think that he's got to leave a message to the fans. Also, Peter 1678, is not letting me forget. There was a couple incidents after the game, albeit kind of Pacific incidents where I think Luizão, was both Luizão and JJ were talking to the fans after the game. But everything very calm from what I was able to read. But my only thing is that you gotta send a message to the fans that have been supporting you and they're with you in the Onda Vermelha, as he likes to call it.
Exactly.
So anyway, let's move on to the next one, or else we'll be stuck here. Next, what I wanted to look at is what Benfica has left and what Porto has left for the remaining of the season. Porto, obviously, they have 3 games more than us, and I'll run down the list on the weekend of the 2nd. Is that a weekend? I think that might be a weekend. Porto will play. Actually, that's midweek. Porto will play against Marítimo. That's going to be the game that decides the final for the League Cup. Then on the following weekend, Benfica will play Nacional at home, and Porto will play Estoril also at home. The weekend after that, Benfica will host Académica, and Porto will go to Rio Ave. So let's see how Porto fares in Rio Ave. Also, right after that, the Rio Ave game, Porto splits the week with the Bayern game at the Dragão midweek. The weekend after that, Benfica is at Belenenses. Porto hosts Académica. Then something that we still aren't sure about, the League Cup final that comes up after that. But after the Académica game, Porto has to go to Germany to play Bayern. Then we have the game against Porto, which should be on or about the weekend of the 25th.
From what I've heard, it's the 29th.
The 29th?
From what I've heard.
Well, I don't know yet if it's been.
It's undetermined yet. It's not concrete, but I've heard the 29th.
Right. So after we play Porto at home, we will travel to Gil Vicente, another really, really tough game. Porto will travel to Setúbal. Then we host Penafiel the weekend after that. Porto will host Gil Vicente. Then we go to Guimarães. That's another very tough game for Benfica. And Porto will come down to Lisbon to play Belenenses. That's the penultimate game of the season. And we'll finish the season at the Luz against Marítimo, and Porto will host Penafiel. So, Steve, aside from perhaps having these extra games, Porto and the Champions League, which would be something that will take a lot out of the team. Clearly, we got a couple games here. Belenenses, for example, at the Restelo, Gil Vicente and Guimarães, crucial, tough games that we just can't afford to slip up.
Absolutely. There's a slight pattern where we've dropped points and lost games this year, and it's all been in the north of Portugal, north of Porto, believe it or not. Passos Ferreira, Braga, and just now Vila de Conde. We're going to go to Barcelos to play Gil Vicente, and we're going to go to Guimarães to play Vitória. And those are 2 games that if you're one to have a superstitious bone in you, you're going to be quite worried, because hopefully we won't be dropping points anymore. The Belenenses game, to me, that's going to be another one of those mini Estádio da Luz. I mean, Belenenses has a small supporting section, few thousand, but the rest of it's going to be all Benfiquistas. The pitch is, the last time I seen it, not in the greatest of conditions. It might make it a little bit difficult to play football, but I still think.
And Rui Fonte and Miguel Rosa won't be playing.
Exactly. Exactly. Where this week or next weekend, when we go to play, or when Nacional comes to Lisboa, I'm pretty sure Tiago Rodrigues and that Marco Matias kid will be playing. So
yeah.
It's one of those things. How without trying to be too cliche, every game's a final now. I mean,
Yeah.
It was already before this weekend, but you're coming down to the end of the season. You have only one real competition that you're really interested in. I still don't think that we're going to play the Taça da Liga with the same intensity or with the same players that we would play the rest of the league. We have to keep focused. This game was the absolute last. Don't want to say opportunity, but the last chance that we had to make a mistake like we did. This cannot happen again. If it happens again, don't want to say it, but I'm pretty sure Porto will win the championship if we drop any more points.
Great,
great
point,
man.
That's
tough, man, but it's real.
We've said before this weekend that Benfica could absolutely not drop any more points. It was key that Benfica went into this Porto game, or started to lose, obviously, with a 4-point lead. And right now, the only thing we rest our laurels on is the fact that Porto needs to come decide lose and beat us by 3-0. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, if they beat us by 1-0, we're still in control.
Yeah.
Because obviously the goal, first, let's not forget, head-to-head matchup.
First is the head-to-head.
And then goals. And Benfica's, ahead on both. So, I don't want to see it come to that. But, I think I've touched on a couple of the podcasts the fact that when Benfica have had their backs against the wall, that Jorge Jesus is kind of, played a little bit more defensive. And, he kind of did the same thing when we went out to the Ladrão this year, I should say. And Benfica obviously played defensive, and they played a great, tactic, a great system as a team, and were able to counter Porto and get the 2-goal lead. But I would just hate to see the Benfica come back home and drop this game like we've seen in years past when Benfica went out to the Ladrão and needed just a draw, and Kelvin in the 92nd minute obviously broke our hearts, and Porto were able to walk away with 3 points.
Really, Chris? 2 times in one podcast you got to mention that?
Man, I've seen it. I mean, Steve, I hate the fact that I'm even mentioning this, but you can't ignore facts, and that's a fact. And this is what I've seen from this ball club. This is what I've seen from this coaching staff. And I've been around this club for a very long time, as both of you guys have, and I'm just not surprised by anything nowadays.
Yeah, I like _ Gomes 89 _ is Matt. Benfica will have 5.5 games at home. Belenenses is the half game. Yeah, if we win next 3 matches and don't lose to Porto, we're 95% bicampeões.
The key is not to lose at home to Porto.
I think that's the key too. I think that's the biggest thing.
I really think that if we beat them, there's just nothing will stop us at that point. But we can't drop points against the little guys anymore. It just can't happen. It will shatter the team's confidence. You just can't do it anymore. It just can't happen.
All right. Well,
I'm just excited about my boy Bebedu Rodriguez. The guy is on a streak, bro. He's a phenomenal goal scorer with the B team. I can't wait.
I don't think it'll be this year, my friend.
Why not this year, Steve? Why shouldn't this guy be given an opportunity over a clown like Derlei, for example?
If Funes Mori was killing it in the B team.
I esquece the Funes Mori, man. This guy's
no. There's an obvious difference between this Jonathan.
Absolutely.
I know there is.
Obvious. I just think that to integrate him into the squad now, even though Derlei is not the greatest player, he's been around. He knows what JJ wants. For him,
come on, he hasn't played in months, man. Come on, let's be
for him to take over Derlei's spot, it will still mean he's not going to play very much. I'd rather him play with the B team week in, week out than him be an unused sub like Derlei is week in, week out.
Steve, do you recall the first time Benfica won a title in 11 years? They had this one dude by the name of Montorras who got absolutely no playing time, but the last 10, 15 minutes, and he scored 6 crucial goals.
That was every week he was coming in off the bench.
Who's to say that I apologize, that Jonathan Rodriguez can't be that player?
I'm not saying that he can't.
Like in a game this weekend when Benfica absolutely needed a spark and they needed a goal, he would have been perfect to come off the bench. Obviously, some limitations.
But he didn't dress.
That's exactly. There's some stipulations as to how many hours the guy can't play in between games and yada yada yada. I think this guy, it's just a matter of time before I think he starts featuring at least in the first 18, and then possibly getting the opportunity over that late, because he does nothing but score, and it's impressive goals. This is not like you just done that mama and you tuck it in the back of the net. These are very impressive goals. The guy is putting in his work great. The guy is doing everything right. Steve, I do think it's a matter of time. I mean, I would not be surprised if after the international break, he would get his first call up to the team. He is, away with Maxi Rodriguez. People, call him his padrino. National Rodriguez close. Jonathan Maxi is close. I got both of them combined. But yeah, he's with Maxi. I should have just kept it at Moxie, right?
Yeah.
He's with Moxie, and I think he'll get an opportunity here rather soon, because he's killing it with the B team, man.
I'm not against the idea. I don't know. I'm not sure it will happen. How's that?
All right. We're gonna go into Nelson's segment.
Liz.
Right now. And we got a name for it. Halftime Headlines. So here we go. Check them out.
Estás em primeiro, tens de defender essa posição. Como é que a podes defender? Como tens feito até aqui, jogando para ganhar, com a pressão sempre de ganhar, porque nós não sabemos trabalhar de outra maneira.
This week we kick off with Eduardo Salvio, who's having one of his best seasons yet at Benfica. The Argentine winger has equaled his highest goal tally in his professional career, with 13 goals this season in all competitions. The rumors of English clubs, in particularly Liverpool and Tottenham, have been peering in and perhaps trying to swoop up our starting winger. Benfica looked to sign a contract extension with him in the summer to lock him up. Nas modalidades, Benfica wins the Taça de Portugal for the 20th time in its illustrious history of basketball, beating Barcelos 88-87 in overtime. This year, they've already won the Supertaça, a Troféu António Pratas, e a Taça Hugo de Santos. Congrats to the guys. And as we look ahead to the international break, Benfica will be without 9 players that will depart and play for their country in some form or another. Here are the call-ups and their opponents. Portugal's Eliseu will play Serbia on March 29th, and Pizzi and André Almeida will most likely play Cape Verde on the 31st. Uruguay's Jonathan Rodriguez and Maxi will play Morocco on the 28th. Greece's Samaris will play Hungary on the 29th. U21 Germany's Hani Mukhtar will play Italy's 21 alongside Brian Kristant on the 27th. And Brazil's Olympic squad has called Anderson Talisca to play against Paraguay and or Mexico on March 27th and 29th.
Sorry for party rocking.
Thanks for listening, and that's all for this week.
All right.
Yeah, no Katy Perry or whatever her name is. The other
Taylor
chick.
Swift.
Taylor Swift at the end.
Thank God.
I like that. I like the little music thing. It always gets us in a little chipper mood, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, but Andre Almeida and Pizzi did get call up to play against Cape Verde.
When, today?
Yeah.
Oh, that was today?
It was announced today.
Okay.
He announced 11 guys that were being called to play against.
Okay, because as of last night, like 4 o'clock in the morning,
right.
It was only 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
He divulged another 11 guys to play against Cape Verde, and both Pizzi and Andre Almeida were on that list. Bow chicka bow bow. All right, let's turn our attention now to the Nacional game. We play Nacional at Stade Luz in a couple weeks' time. If you were listening in the beginning, the reason why we're doing a preview, we're not really sure if we're going to do a show next week, so we'll get the preview out of the way.
We're going to do a show.
Nacional is currently 9th, 9 wins, 6 ties, and 11 losses is their total score. Away, only 2 wins, 3 ties, and 8 losses. But we know that Manuel Machado is a very good coach. Last 10 meetings between both teams, Benfica won 8 times. One of them, the famous 4 fingers, and 2 ties.
Way to be prepared, bro. You brought stats today.
I got stats.
Must have been that book we bought.
Steve, what do you think, bro? Not an easy game by any means. You know what this game reminds me of, Steve?
Don't say it, because I have a feeling I know. Estoril in 2000 and whatever, the year we lost the final again, the Kelvin year. Yes, I see it. I see it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Nacional's got a good side, man. They got that Lucas Rong kid who just got called to the same 11 guys for the Cabo Verde game. They got Marco Matias, who I think is actually at least at one point in the season, he was the highest Portuguese goal scorer in the league. The kid that played at Guimarães last year, Tiago Rodrigues, that's on loan from Porto. They have a tight squad. They have a coach who's very, very well seasoned, a guy who's obviously got a little bit of...
I think he's actually marinated, not seasoned so much.
He's been around so long, he's marinated. That's a good one.
For sure. He's also the guy that had some kind of a cosmetic surgery on his neck and fell ill, and he almost died. Yeah, he was getting the fat sucked out of his neck. And he almost died. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at other people's disgrace.
He's trying to be sexy for the Madeira people.
Yeah, but people can confirm that he had some kind of liposuction on his neck and things didn't go well, and he almost went to the other side.
That's pretty wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But regardless, he's a pretty good coach, and he's a coach that has a thing for JJ. I'm sure he would love to get back at those four fingers he pointed at him.
That was a while ago.
It's a while back. They've seemed to be amicable since, but I'm sure it's in the back of his mind. It's a game at home against a team outside of the big three. Benfica's the favorite. They're the ones with all the pressure. You know what? You got to get 3 points. And speaking of pressure, a lot of people have been mentioning on Twitter, Porto is the team under more pressure at the moment. They're in second. They got to go to the lose and win. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
We gotta play with that, and just you can't lose points against these little guys. I will repeat it. It just can't happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you that Porto definitely has the pressure, but I mean we've been quite stellar at home this season. As a matter of fact, there's some kind of a record out there, if I'm not mistaken, that we haven't given up any goals at home for quite some time. I think this Nacional team can provide a little bit of a challenge for us, but I think that we'll overcome. I expect to see another almost packed house at Estádio da Luz. I think that the fans will be out in force again, supporting this team, especially because they know that Nacional game is so crucial, as is the Académica games and all the other games that we've mentioned here. They're all finals. But I think that Benfica, the fact that they're playing 2 games in a row at home, I think it's going to be good enough to build the momentum as long as they could get those results. So I think that it'll be good. It'll be good for Benfica to play 2 games at home and to garner that momentum before we go to Belenenses and then we play Porto. So we'll see what happens. Anything else?
I think we got it all this week.
Yeah. Timo's here. Timo said that he'll share his sock secrets with you.
That's what's up. I love socks, Timo. And due to the fact he's a Red Sox fan, I love it even more.
_ Gomez 89 _ Jonathan Rodriguez may very well be the ace in Jesus' sleeve against Porto. Steve, what do you think, man? You think that kid is ready for a game of that magnitude?
That I would love for it to happen, but like I said, I don't know if JJ's good. He's gonna have to really impress JJ, and I'm not saying it's impossible to be getting minutes off of Lima or Jonas at this point.
Steve, the guy's been absolutely magnificent with the B team. And now, hold on, pera, meu amigo, pera. Now he goes out with Uruguay, and he does get a couple minutes playing time, and he puts one in the back of the net. I mean, if that's not going to impress JJ, I don't know what is.
He's on fire.
Fuego!
I think that the fact that JJ has been present at a lot of B team games at the Seychelles, and from what we know is to watch this kid, and we never had seen JJ at the Seychelles so many times to watch a B team game. I think that speaks volumes.
I don't know. I hope you guys are right because I'll be honest. I'm not. I prefer him over Derlei, There's a lot more talent in
Without a doubt.
Than there is in their leg.
Yeah, there's talent, but there's no game routines, and we know that JJ's tactical system is something that takes a while to pick up. I mean, it takes a guy, a seasoned, marinated, or whatever you want to call it, to understand the system, to have the footballing brain.
I think that's true with a midfielder. With a poacher, I don't think that's true. I think with a poacher is get to the ball, put him back in the net. And I think that when he comes in, I think when Jonas comes into the lineup here, well, not Jonas, Jonathan. I'm sorry, guys. I think when Jonathan comes into the lineup here with Benfica, he'll be with one intention only. He'll be kind of like the Urus with the, what do you call it? Things,
the blinders.
The blinders. Pa frente, go score goals with very specific instructions of just going and killing it, getting out and goal. So I don't think it'll be very complicated here for Jonathan Rodriguez.
I think that with JJ's system, especially when he plays with two men in the midfield, the guys up front, whether it's the guy that drops off the center forward or not, those guys got to know what spaces to occupy, where to go, where to serve as a release ball.
For starters. I think he'll come off the bench when Benfica needs a goal, or Benfica's up a couple goals to give this dude some type of playing time and some experiences. So I think whenever the hell he does jump off the bench, it'll be with very specific instructions.
Yeah. Here's one for you, Cristiano, and this one is for Meg. Lovers out of time. Eliseu to stay next year or to be sold?
So you can't sell the guy at this rate. I think if Benfica would let him go, I mean, they're not going to get nothing but a basket of Pop 6 for the dude. So
no, he's in. He's in for the long haul. He got Pastéis blind.
It depends. It depends what Benfica's ambitions are for next year. I can see Benfica letting him go, cutting ties, rescinding contract with the guy, but it all depends what happens this year. If Benfica next year intends to compete not only for the Tricampeonato, hopefully they win the Bicampeonato. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But if they intend to compete, in European competition, he's going to definitely be one of the guys you have to look at a position that you need to strengthen. So I'm not sure at the moment, right? As we speak right now, I'm not sure if this guy will be brought back next year. And I like him. You guys hear me week in, week out that I defend this dude. So I'm not sure he'll be back.
I much rather have Eliseu than have a Patrick, than have a Bruno Cortes. I mean, you name him. The list is quite extensive of all the left backs we have gotten from Brazil. Emerson, to name another one. I much rather have Eliseu than
Luis
6 of those guys.
Aguiar, come on, dude. There's been like 57 of them.
Steve, here's one for you, and I think this comes up every week from Peter 1678. Question: which B team player do you want to see make the jump? Name a few.
Number 1 would be Teixeira.
I'm there.
Number 2 would obviously be this Rodriguez kid that we've been talking about.
I'm there.
Gonçalo Guedes. There's the 3.
Yeah.
The guy I constantly hear week in, week out talking about that he could be a huge part of this Benfica's midfield next year is the kid at Deportivo La Coruña.
Farinha.
I watched him.
I've liked him.
I think he's more advanced today than what they shit is.
No,
different type of player, dude.
Different player, and I watched Farinha just this past weekend for about 45 minutes, and I was not impressed at all. I know it's only 45 minutes. I think Ivan Cavaleiro was a lot better in those 45 minutes than Farinha was. I don't know. You're gonna have another huge camp like always next July. Sorry, this July or whenever it is, but. I don't think Farinha stays. To go back to Eliseu, if you have any European aspirations, you can't count on a left back like Eliseu. Gonna break it to a lot of people, but I don't think you can count on Jardel either. So there's another thing to look at.
Here comes the firing squad.
Timo and Lucinda just cracked their knuckles.
This will be conversation for the next 78 hours.
Yeah. All right, I think that's about it. So I think that's all I got. Steve, you got anything else you wanted to add, bro?
No, not that I can think of, but it looks like Chris wants to say something.
Vai lá.
No, I'll leave it for the I'll leave it for the end of the season.
Hey, do you know that what's his name? Romeo is gay?
No, okay. I wasn't aware. Who's Romeo? What does he play for?
I don't know.
Guimarães?
It's a singer.
Oh, Romeo Santos.
Oh yeah.
come on, you're breaking my heart. You're breaking Amina's heart. I mean, come on, that's not nice of you. I mean, regardless, I still love his music. Romeo, yo te quiero, mi amor. But what was I gonna say? I mean, we're talking about next season, right? I mean, I think Benfica right now. We haven't solidified things yet, but you know what? The one rumor I've heard about Benfica next season, Steve, and I think I'm pretty sure if you're smart, as I think you are, you'd be pretty excited about this as well. Is the fact that there have been some type of rumors that Benfica have kind of sniffed around. The kid Anthony Lopes, the goalkeeper at Lyon. I mean, as much as I love Julius Cesar, that's a kid that I had the privilege of playing with him when he was a youngster. He came over to the United States and played a little bit of indoor soccer. Of course, I schooled him. But, it'd be cool to see someone like that play at Benfica. I think he should be starting for the Portuguese national team today.
I'd rather see the left back. The Guerreiro kid.
Guerreiro's not coming to Portugal. Forget about it.
Why not?
He's going to England.
If there's anyone that we could get from France, buy it for the money.
That's totally different. It's kind of like if there's any girl you could date, but the fact is you can't date her. You know what I mean?
No, I'm just saying that for the money. I mean, we could probably get Guerreiro cheaper.
His contract is up.
Well, you could get Guerreiro cheaper,
but you can't get him cheaper than free. You can't get cheaper than free. I think his contract is up.
Lopes is up.
From what I've heard, and I think Baller Report or Jogo, one of them, newspapers report over the last couple of weeks. And you guys listening at home, please, and particularly you, Pedgy, you do a terrific job of doing the research. If you could find this and hit us up on this, I'd appreciate it. I think his contract is up, coming up at the end of the year. So, Guerreiro, he's got a pretty huge market. I think he'll be in England at some point next season.
All right. I think that's about it. Don't forget to check out our friends over at planetbenfica.co.uk.
João
Emanuel. Also, fubo.tv/Benfica Podcast if you want to watch Benfica TV live. And also now they've added to their lineup Sport TV Americas. And they also have Being Sports HD and Goal HD. Don't forget to check them out. Fubo.tv/Benfica Podcast, so we can get credit and support the podcast, obviously. At 10CO10 is Chris's Twitter. At Steve Santos 6.
Not 06.
Is
6.
Mr. Chalkboard himself. And at Benfica Podcast is where you can find us. Am I forgetting anything?
Yeah.
Don't forget to check out our website, benficapodcast.com. Nelson wrote a piece, and he was also in attendance at the Orlando City game.
Orlando City. I like how you put the Portuguese accent on that.
Orlando City game, our sister club this past weekend, and he was fortunate enough to apply for credentials through the Benfica Podcast, and they gave it to him. He was on the field taking some pictures, checking out our boy Rafael Ramos. We're hoping to.
Who's the other chop on that team? I know
Estrela.
Where is he? Because he hasn't been.
He hasn't been playing, and
so Benfica was right to let this guy go.
Yeah, well, they didn't let him go. I think they.
Yeah.
But
didn't renew.
We're hoping to have some audio from Rafael Ramos soon, and maybe we can even have him on a podcast one of these days. I've been very impressed from what I've seen from him so far. He's a boy playing amongst men in the MLS, and he's been doing quite well. Anyway. That's all I got. Cristiano?
Arrivederci. Once again, it's a pleasure to do this for you guys. Tune back in next week for the Portuguese national team update.
Yeah, so next week we still haven't figured out what we're going to do. We're leaning right now to take the week off, but if we could get a bunch of people together and do this huge hangout and broadcast, I think that would be great. I think that's all I got. Thank you very much for checking us out. BenficaPodcast.com, planetbenfica.co.uk. Thank you. See you next week, or maybe not.
Peace out.